Hello, listeners. Welcome to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey.
That's me.
Unlocking Your Truth is a talk show about metaphysics and spirituality. And we broadcast on 101.7 FM across the Fraser Valley from the unceded territory of the Stolo Nation.
Yes, we do.
Every week on a Tuesday from 7 to 8 Pacific time is our regular slot. And you, as well as listening on CIVL, you can also come and watch live streams on the Facebook group. That's the Awaken Your Psychic Abilities Facebook group. And also my YouTube channel, which is just Dr. Leslie Phillips. And you can catch all of our past podcasts on drlesliephillips.com. Well, we have an interesting show this evening, and it was prompted by the show we did last week.
Yes, so, we loved it so much.
Yeah, people were really into it. We were talking about past lives last week, and somebody asked a question which got us talking about parallel lives and then sparked the idea of future lives. And I think we blew a few minds last week, or at least the mind of the person who asked the question, that you can actually have multiple bodies on the planet at the same time. And that's what's called a parallel lifetime. And it's mind-blowing to us because we tend to think in a very linear way. In a very 3D, 4D fashion, because after all, here we are embedded in time, space, reality. And so our experience from this perspective is a linear one where time flows and we travel through time. And so it seems to us, well, then my past lives, they're in my past. And my future lives, they're in my future. And this consciousness is a singular consciousness. And so how could you possibly have more than one of me on the planet at the same time? And so it's...
Who'd want more than one of me on the planet at the same time?
And the thing is that you are an individuated consciousness. But ultimately, you, at the level of your higher being, you're multidimensional. You're eternal. And you exist outside of time and space. So from the soul's perspective, there is no past and there is no future. There is the sort of everlasting now. And all of the lifetimes that are projections of consciousness from that soul, that higher being from which you originate, from the soul's perspective, are happening simultaneously or at once. They're not happening in a linear fashion according to the progression of time. And not only that, they are all integrally connected to each other. So they're all part of the same being. All of your lifetimes are all part of the same higher being. They're all interconnected. And actually, this is the true meaning of a soul mate. A soulmate is another projection of consciousness into a body in our context on our planet here. I lost my train of thought. So I think
soulmate.
Yes, what a soulmate is. A soulmate is basically a projection of consciousness that comes from the same soul. So all of your past lives and all of your future lives are your soulmates. That's what a soulmate is. And, it's often mistakenly thought, well, when will I meet my soulmate? Because when I meet my soulmate, that will solve all my problems, because that will be the ultimate love match for me. And actually, that's not necessarily true, because what is the soul doing in creating these lifetimes is wanting to evolve, is wanting to expand, is wanting to have new experiences never had before. And so if you do meet one of your soulmates, which is one of the other bodies alive on the planet at the same time, a parallel lifetime, if you do meet one of them, then it may not be a love match at all. It might be something quite different than you'd imagined. And even if it is, then it would be one that perhaps involves a lot of expansion and potentially challenges along the way. So the title of today's show was something like, is your future actually your future, and can you change it? And so the short answer to that is yes, you can change your future. And so let's just think about this. So you've heard the law of attraction, and you've heard you create your reality. And you've heard you create your reality from who you are. Meaning the energy that you are now is determining what future timeline shows up for you. Okay, so how you hold your vibration in the eternal now, this moment now, it's like you're broadcasting a signal, which is the composite of all the energy that you are. And because our universe works on like attracts like, it will reflect back at you what you are. Meaning that what shows up in your reality is a direct reflection of you. And so that's determining all of the future moments that appear in your path, the energy that you are now. And that, so you can end up with kind of a bit of momentum going. All right. So if you've got your energy invested in particular things, particular beliefs, particular passions about things, then, or spiraling upward or spiraling downward even, then think of that like a train, an energy train that you're riding on. And that energy train is heading in a particular direction. The direction is determined by the energy that you are. And that train is traveling into your future, the future now moments that you will experience. And that train, at the point that you die and are no longer in that life, in this lifetime, continues running. Okay. And so who you are now, as well as determining what future timeline shows up for you in this life, can also contribute to what shows up in a future life. And one of the things that means is you can consciously take charge of your reality. You can consciously create your preferred reality, your preferred future scenario that you want to live through. And you can even pre-program future lifetimes. With that knowledge that you create your reality by the energy that you are, and that you can build up a particular momentum in a particular direction. So, now, Corey wrote up a little paragraph to sort of help us get into our subject matter. And I think I'll just go over what he wrote.
I did.
You did. It says, have you heard of past lives? And did you know there is such a thing as future lives? And so we've just been talking about that, haven't we? And really, the nomenclature past and future lives is just so we can understand it from our perspective, because we're embedded in time, which is linear or appears linear to us. So what appears to be history for us. If we have a lifetime that shows up in that historical timeline, we call it a past life. But equally, there can be lifetimes that appears to be a future time from our perspective. So from our perspective, they're past lives, present lives, parallel lives, future lives. From the soul's perspective, they are projections of consciousness that are all simply occurring. Not on a timeline from the soul's perspective. They're all happening at once.
Yeah.
It's just being creative.
It was Dr. Weiss I first read about future lives, which is very interesting. He was doing work with his patients, and past lives came to him, realizing that a lot of the stuff that people were going through was from occurrences and issues from past lives. And so but he had one patient that kept bringing forth lives that he couldn't figure it out. And what happened was I forget exactly how he determined they were future lives, but they ended up being future lives for this one woman. And so then it opened up a whole Pandora's box for him, and seeing all these new aspects of your eternal progression. It was very interesting for him, and just by sheer accident.
Okay, very cool. I've not read any of his books, but sounds interesting.
I think that book was Past Life, Future Lives, or something like that. That was good though.
Okay. So then the next thing that Corey wrote in his paragraph was, these future lives are not set in stone. You have an infinite number of possible future timelines. So again, from where we are embedded, right, in present time reality, in time and in space, the future doesn't exist. Okay, we're in a physical body. The physical body is only ever right here, right now. Your physical body cannot go into the past and cannot go into the future. It's always right here, right now. And so the future is kind of, how do we see it? You've heard of the quantum field. It's a field of possibilities, or we might even say probabilities, depending on what your energy is right here, right now. Because depending on your energy right here, right now, certain future time scenarios are more or less likely. But this planet is based on free will. This planet is based on choice. So in every moment, you can make different choices from your own free will that change your energy. And as you change your energy, then that can make things that might show up in your future reality more or less likely, more or less probable. And hence how we say you create your reality. And if you're in a reality that you don't prefer, all you have to do is change your energy. Now, to us, that looks like we are creating different futures. But actually what we're doing is, if you think that in the quantum field, in the realm of all existence, everything is possible, and the potential for everything exists. And so through your energy, you're just choosing the path that you travel through that everything that exists. So let's see if we can picture. Imagine, instead of time flowing, that there was every moment that possibly could existed. And all you had to do is hop and travel between each of these moments, like a little light blinking on and off. Now I'm here, now I'm here, now I'm here, now I'm here. Now that's actually what you're doing. And so by your energy, you're basically navigating through the quantum field. And so that's when we get into this idea of timelines and jumping timelines and parallel timelines.
However, there is a law of probability that works along with that. All these timelines are possible. I mean, anything and everything is possible, but the laws of probability come up too, that only so many are probable that can occur. And I was up on the ladder today, and I was thinking about that a little bit about the show, and I was saying, if I fell off this ladder and I fell backwards, and this has happened to me. I fell once on an icy step, and I was going down on my back, and all of a sudden, all these probabilities or these possibilities came in. Well, if I fall this way, I could break my spine. I could do this. I could hit my head, and all in the splits, like split seconds, these probable outcomes came. And then what I did is I turned just enough, and I fell on my side, and just but it's sort of the same thing, but an alien could have come and pulled me up, or an angel or something like that, and stopped me from falling altogether. Or I could have floated.
That reminds me of two things. One is, those Sherlock Holmes movies that Guy Ritchie directed, and there's always this pause while he calculates the trajectory of this and that before actually the camera speeds up and then he does it. And for some reason, it also reminded me of the 9 lives of cats, because that's how cats fall, isn't it? They always twist themselves to land in exactly the right way. Mm-hmm. It's funny how we say they've got 9 lives.
They got more than 9.
Yeah, no, but you're right that there's infinite possibilities, but a set of more likely probabilities. We've got to go to a break, listeners.
Yeah, and we probably will be back.
See you shortly. Welcome back, listeners. You're tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey. Tonight's subject is your future actually your future, or can you change it? And it was inspired because last week we talked about past lives, and we ended up also talking a little bit about future lives. And everyone said, "Oh yeah, I want. Let's talk about future lives next week." So, is your future predetermined or preordained? And that's an interesting question. I think the answer is, from your perspective, no, it isn't. From your perspective, you have free will. From your perspective, you have a choice. From your perspective, you are potentially can be the master of your own personal private universe, meaning that you can shift and change your energy. And that is the way that you drive the car, or we were saying train earlier. That's the way you steer the ship, is by becoming a master of your own energy. Then you navigate through reality based on what your energy is. That determines what you experience, because you're experiencing yourself reflected back at you. So if you can become super conscious of that, and super conscious of your energy, and learn how to shift your energy, then you can steer yourself through the reality that you prefer. Now, from your perspective, it's not preordained. It's not predetermined. However, depending on what perspective what lens you want to look at this question through, you could take a higher perspective, maybe the soul's perspective. The soul is able to observe all moments in your life simultaneously, and all moments in all lives simultaneously. So from the soul's perspective, it's known. From your perspective, it's not. And so that is quite the conundrum, isn't it? It's quite the paradox. How can you have both of those things? One that says it's not preordained and one that says it's all known. And it's difficult and mind-boggling, isn't it, for our human brains to, well, how is that possible? But it is possible, and it is how it is. It's just from our human perspective, it's a little bit difficult to fathom. Now, there are ways in which you can work with this information. So what are some of the things that we can talk about here? You can communicate with your past and future lives and your parallel lives. So there's ways in which you can connect with those other versions of you. And their information is your information. It's part of your Akashic record. So you can share in their knowledge and their abilities and what they've learned, and you can share what you've learned with them. And so the whole tapestry of you is evolving together, and each one is benefiting from the experiences of the other. Every time you change, that sends ripples through the fabric of your whole being, which extends to all of these other lifetimes. Yes.
I think one of the issues we have with this, just like in almost anything else, is to really understand and accept the reality that you are not just this physical body, that you are your spiritual being as well. I think many people go through their life thinking that this is it. And yes, they know they have a soul, but the soul is inert. It doesn't do anything. It just sits there and leaves you when you die, and it goes fluttering around playing harps or something. But
Yeah.
it is actually a part of who you are that effectually can change your life and change and have action and help you create action.
My battery is about to go on my phone that's live streaming to Facebook, Corey. So I am going to run and get my charger.
Okay, so I'll
And
speak a little
I'll
bit
get
then.
you to keep talking if that's all right.
Oh, sure. Sounds good to me. Yeah, it's I know for myself, sometimes it's really difficult to understand that I am these two beings and that I feel powerful, but the person that's stomping their feet behind me is Leslie looking for her charger. She's very short, but she's very stompy. Um, the for me, it's the spirit is the strength that you have. It is actually the who you are, and that's important to comprehend. Before you can comprehend that, you can read your future and have it be part and parcel of what you're believing in today and the way you want to go today. And this is where manifestation comes in as well, of course, is that strength, that belief that is occurring, that you are actually making a change in your future. And that's why it's so important. That's just one quick note on that. That's why it's so important to not have psychic readings telling the future, because somebody else, you're giving up your power to somebody else to determine your future. And it's very critical, very, 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 it sounds so much fun. Oh, let's have I want to get a reading of, I want to know what's going to happen in the future, when I'm going to meet my soulmate, when I'm going to do this, when I'm going to do that, when am I going to get a new job. But it's don't give your future up to somebody else, because that's exactly what you're doing. I think Dr. Leslie is back.
I'm back. Yes, I only caught the tail end of that, but if ever I get persuaded, I rarely get persuaded to do a future time prediction for somebody, I will always give a percentage likelihood. You know, I'm seeing this as the most probable scenario. It's 60% likely that it will happen based on your energy as it is now. and it could change as you change. But yes, exactly. It can be the case that you know, you're giving your power away to that person who's giving you that future time prediction, because now they're potentially locking you in to one future scenario. And I mean, it's up to you whether you get programmed with that. But if you're particularly programmable, you might, and then you end up believing it, and then you end up creating it when actually you didn't have to create that.
But that can depend on how strong the stimulus. You don't have to be easily programmed. But again, the one I really enjoy using when I describe that is if you go to somebody and they tell you you're going to die falling in an elevator, the probability of you not wanting to take trips in elevators is very strong. You have to be very strong. If you truly believe in what this person is telling you, you're going to stay out of elevators.
Right. And then you will prove them wrong because you won't die in an elevator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you take the next elevator you take, you fall and you die, you know, like.
Yeah. So before I realized my phone battery was dying, I was talking about the interconnection between all these different versions of you and how you can plug and play with that, how you can connect with your other lifetimes, how you can learn from them, how you can, you know, communicate with them. You can also communicate with and connect with a future version of yourself. So not just a future lifetime, but actually a future version of you, a potential future version of you. And by working with that, together with that future version of you, you can make it more likely that that is the future version of you that you will step into. So it's actually a very, very powerful manifestation technique to learn how to do that, how to energetically connect with future versions of yourself and anchor in that pathway to become that one, and actually collapse the timeline and make it happen more rapidly.
Well,
So
we've got questions starting to come in. If that's
yeah,
of any interest to you, Dr. Leslie.
I would say absolutely.
You're ready for your battering of questions.
Oh, I hope it's not a battering. I hope it's just a gentle posing.
Well, they're just coming in, and they're let me start with one. This one's from Letitia. Letitia says, so say I have a past life in 1826 or something like that. Is that life technically occurring at the same time as this life, just on a different timeline, since there's no space or time in the spirit world? Kind of like multiverse, several lives happening at once.
Okay. So I might use different words, but I think you're on the right track. Okay. So to you, it appears to be in your past. To your higher being, there's no time or space that separates the lifetimes. I always like to use this example, and some people get it, and other people are like, "Oh, I don't get what you mean," but I'll try it with you guys. Maybe it will work. Think about a disco ball. You know, a disco ball on the ceiling, and imagine that disco ball is your soul. And you know how it's got all those little squares, those little mirrors on the surface? So imagine that if each of the squares is a lifetime. The soul contains all of those lifetimes. They're all there simultaneously making up this disco ball. Then if you look down at the floor, and let's pretend the floor is planet Earth, each of those little squares is beaming a reflection of the soul's light into the world. Now, all of those little squares are now not together in one disco ball. They're separated on the floor. They're completely separate from each other. And if you imagine that you were one of those lights on the floor, so from your perspective, you'd be like, well, I'm here in this position, but ahead of me is another light, and behind me is another light. And so that one appears to be in my future, and that one appears to be in my past. And oh, look, there's one next to me. So to you, it appears that they are separated in space across the disco floor and time by this linear, glimpsing the ones in front of you and the ones behind you. From the soul's perspective, they are one. They're all part of the disco ball. That might help, that little metaphor might help explain it to you. I hope so.
Okay, next. These are good. They're really good. Okay, this is from Katie. Katie says, to clarify, are parallel timelines when your soulmate is living while you're living, as in you can meet them in person?
Parallel lives. A parallel life is when a soulmate, meaning another projection of consciousness into a body from the same soul that you emanate from, is alive on the planet at the same time, and it's possible that you might meet them in physical reality. So that's, I wouldn't call that a parallel. Well, would I call that a parallel time? I'd call that a parallel lifetime. But yes, those lifetimes appear to overlap in time from your perspective.
Sorry. I don't find the questions funny or anything. I just find them intense. And it's like, it shows you how important words are, and using the right words to say what you mean, because it can throw off the whole aspect of what you're talking about. It's quite interesting. Okay, let's go to the next one. Just wondering if we should go. No, let's not go to a break yet. Okay, so this is from Joanna. Joanna says, so going back to creating our reality by inhabiting and owning our own energy, we are able to do that if we are still are we able to do that if we are still healing from trauma?
Well, it's a process. It's not a state of perfection. And so long as you are healing, then actually you are in the process of owning your energy. Because if you're healing from trauma, you're in the process of releasing the trauma, and hopefully you're filling in the space with your energy. And in learning how to do that energetically, you're developing a level of mastery of understanding your own energy. And by the way, if anyone wants a first step in how to own your energy, and how to start to be an energy master in charge of your own energy field, then my book, Intuition and Chakras, and the subtitle is How to Increase Your Psychic Development Through Energy. It's a good place to start. It's in 3 sections, and the last section is energy techniques. And these energy techniques help you to start to take charge and own your energy field. And the rest of the book teaches you about your energy field.
Okay, so is that it for the answer, Dr. Leslie?
Read the question again, and then I can tell if I answered it.
You broke off there a little bit. So going back to creating a reality by inhabiting and owning our own energy, we are able to do that if we are still healing from trauma.
Yeah, I mean, because what I was trying to say is it's a journey. It's not a state of perfection that you reach. When you're in a body, you're always in a state of becoming. You're always in a state of flux. You're always in a state of change. And you're always faced with kind of like ups and downs, you know, and growth cycles. So what I was trying to say is, it's not like, now I have reached the state of perfection and I am the God of my personal universe, totally and completely in charge of my energy. We're always healing from something in a way, because this planet is a planet of duality. And so we're always going in and out of balance of something, or in and out of alignment of something. So to be an energy master is to know when that's happening and pull yourself back into alignment. And what you're doing when you're healing yourself is you're in the process of pulling yourself back into alignment.
Yeah, and you got to also remember that you are a powerful being. When you're looking at trauma, you're looking at your physical being, your physical person. But when you're when you're talking about manifestation or creating realities, you're talking about a spiritual being, which is a powerful being. It is all powerful. And now, Dr. Leslie, I have the power. We're going to go to a break. So we'll be back soon. How did you think about that?
Welcome back, listeners. You're tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey, boggling our minds with talking about future lives and future timelines, really, as the subject matter. And why we say boggling our minds is because it's difficult not to get into your intellect when you start talking about things like this. And really, this is spiritual information. This is multidimensional information, which is beyond the human intellect. So that's why we get into some mental gymnastics about it. But anyway, on to further mental gymnastics.
More like Olympics. And the Special Olympics, not even the regular ones. Okay, this is from Brian. Brian says, yes, I'm wondering about our consciousness. Okay, Brian, me too. I mean, if I'm focused in this form, yet the same consciousness exists in other form elsewhere, it seems like a different person. I'm kind of wondering how that consciousness shifts when those lives end. I mean, do I cease to exist and that consciousness is completely different?
Wow, that is okay. So that
one
is
more, eh? One more time. Okay. Yes, I'm wondering about consciousness. I mean, if I'm focused in this form, yet the same consciousness exists in another form elsewhere, it seems like a different person. I'm kind of wondering how that consciousness shifts when those lives end. I mean, do I cease to exist and that consciousness is completely different?
Okay, so it is a different person. It's not the same person. It's a completely different person. So whether a past life, a present life, a future life, to the life that you are living is a different person. So it's a projection of consciousness from the same soul. But when the soul projects its consciousness into an incarnation, think of it like the analogy it puts on an outfit. And maybe in this consciousness, the outfit it puts on is a pink frilly dress. And I'm the personality in a pink frilly dress. And then maybe in this other one, it puts on a business suit. Yes, I'm the serious personality in the business suit. So it is not the same person. You put on a body personality. Okay, so you are a different person. You're an entirely different person. So other lifetimes that are projections of consciousness from the same soul that you come from, they're closer to you than a brother or a sister, but they're not you in the way that you are you. So that's the first part of the question. And the second part was, what happens when I die to the consciousness that I am? And do I continue? And the answer to that is yes, you do continue, but your experience of reality shifts. And in order to have this experience here, you kind of forget a whole bunch of stuff that you are. And so when you pass on, one of the things that I believe happens is that you're born back into that broader state of awareness, more of that multi-dimensional state of awareness. And so the difference is when you're incarnate, you can be very, very focused, and very distilled and very specific. And when you leave this state, you become more interconnected and more dispersed and and therefore less focused. But there is a continuation of the consciousness that you are, and a continued evolvement of the consciousness that you are, because you are an eternal being, and this version of you is a creation of an eternal being. So you don't end. I hope that makes sense.
You know, if we were going to watch, if Hollywood did this movie, right, we would watch this movie and we would say, oh yeah, I get it. But because it's us, we don't get it. It's difficult to, and I keep going back to the same point. It's difficult for us, for me, to understand and accept this, and but yet if I saw somebody else doing it, I could probably say, yeah, I get that. You know, I get that they're existing in two timelines at the same time. I mean, and there are movies. There's a movie, I'm trying to think of the name of the movie, and it is exactly that. They keep going back as different people in different timelines and meeting.
There's a series called Quantum Leap, and there's a movie called Sliding Doors as well, which is not parallel lives, but her, shifting timelines.
Yeah. There's one where this somebody goes back and meets their wife as a different person, and yet meets himself in that timeline, and it all makes sense. But because it's us and we're thinking about it, it's difficult to really to put our wrap around, our little brains to wrap around it. But Hollywood does a good job at doing it. Okay, so Katie says, the way I understand it is that our soul knows the choices we make with our free will and how our energy will change, even though we don't know our future. Why is that? Are we keeping the truth from ourselves? And how does this work for those who have premonitions about themselves?
Okay, so there's a couple of questions in there, and I think that I just answered the first part when I was talking to Brian. When we are incarnate, we're projecting a portion of the totality of who we are, and we're deliberately focusing in time-space reality, which means that, yeah, we're not connected with that eternal all that we are. We're focused on this one that I am now. And then what about people who have premonitions? Well, people who have premonitions, a premonition is when you tune into a future time scenario, and the ones that get recorded and spoken about, it's a premonition if it actually comes true. So maybe, somebody has a dream about the Twin Towers going down, and then 2 days later, the Twin Towers go down. That is a premonition. So how do you explain a premonition? Well, everything is in the field. Everything exists in the field. The idea that the Twin Towers might go down is a pre-existing potential or possibility. Now, depending on circumstances and how they're occurring in our world, that's either a likely or unlikely possibility. And so when somebody has a premonition, they're tapping into that potential future time reality. And most premonitions happen within 24 hours to 3 days of the actual event occurring. And so those events, in a way, we might think of them as becoming more probable when you're faced with that short timeline. So they're tapping into a possible potential future, and possibly tapping into one with a high probability or likelihood of happening. And then 2 days later, that thing becomes manifest. And then it's, aha, they had a premonition. It's also possible for people to have dreams of things like that and they don't come true. Like I've had dreams that did come true. I've also had ones that seemed so real that I thought they would come true and they didn't. And it's the same thing for a psychic predicting the future. That's really what they're doing. They're looking at the potential, the most likely potential future scenarios. And they may or may not come true, depending on how the energy reorganizes itself on the physical plane, okay? So these are all potentials that are out there, and only a limited number of them can become manifest and real in the physical sense. And a premonition is when you, ahead of time, tune into one that actually ends up becoming manifested. I hope that makes sense.
So I'm sitting here thinking, if in a if in a future life, say 3 generations down, I'm living in that future life as my great grandchild, would something like that be feasible or possible?
Yeah, absolutely. And it actually, I think it's fairly common for people to reincarnate into the same family, because we tend to travel
as a another word just won't come to me, a direct descendant.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
quite possible. It's not always what happens, but it definitely could happen, can happen, and does happen. But you can equally go into a completely different genetic line, I suppose, or appear to.
Brian says it helps somewhat. It's a lot to take in, though. Yeah. I'm going to make a prediction. We're all going to go away tonight going, huh? Ryan also says, LOL, I found none of those future predictions ever come true. I must be making different choices that alter those future possibilities. Definitely. So he has another comment here on commenting on Katie's. He says, maybe it's all for the experience, Katie. I mean, we can tell someone not to touch a hot stove knowing they'll do it anyway, but until they burn their hand, they don't have the true knowing, the experience. Very much, very true.
Yeah, that's true, isn't it? That's what we're doing. We are all experiencing things from the first time. I mean, that's what this game is about, creating new experiences, expanding consciousness.
Yeah. So Katie, sorry, Katie. I think Katie might be a little lost tonight because she asked, what are parallel timelines? Not that you're lost, Katie, but that you're...
Okay, well, I guess a parallel timeline, I don't even know that it's something we talked about, but a parallel timeline would be, let's see, and let's see how we can, a parallel timeline would be a different version of Katie, living the same life, but there's something different about it. Maybe this other version of Katie's got a different haircut or a different boyfriend, or, so I guess a parallel timeline would be a different version of you. The same you that you are, but with differences.
Michelle says, like on Netflix's Outlander, your favorite heroine, Dr. Leslie.
I find her
But
very annoying, that heroine.
the only difference there is actually it's the same person in different timelines. She goes back and forth. She stops existing in one timeline as she goes back to the other time in the past into the other timeline. But there again, there she also, I think, there she becomes an ancestor of future people as well. She has a child in the past as well as in the future. Oh, my head! And you heard it here first. What time is it? Okay, we have SG has a comment. He said, or a question. He says, I have an off-topic question that's bothering me. Me and my friend stopped talking for months. I was wondering, how do I get her off my mind and move on right now, whether we talk in the future or not?
Okay.
I can answer that one if you can.
Well, so I mean, it depends. I mean, are you hooking into in just this person in general, or are you hooking into the specifics of what happened and what caused the reason to stop talking? Because there could be a number of things going on here. One could be her energies in your space, or your energies in her space, or you're commingling your energies, in which case you just need to separate out your energies so you're no longer experiencing her vibes. Or the other is that your mind is hooked in. Your mind is hooked into to something and is just grabbed a hold of it and making it go round and round and round and round, in which case you just have to take that thought form and dissolve it. There's a free meditation we always mention on this show on my website, which teaches you grounding, which is a technique that can help you release any and all energies, including thought forms or including foreign energy. And so you might want to check that out if you haven't downloaded it, and just use the grounding to help you separate energetically from this person and let go of whatever, happened.
Just putting that link on here. There you go. It's we've got time for one more quick one, Dr. Leslie.
Okay.
And this is from Joanna. Joanna says, are we able to directly communicate with our parallel lives, same body, different possibilities, or shift to those realities?
So you're able to communicate with other versions of yourself. When you say directly communicate, you can communicate as spirit with them. Can you hop your consciousness into their body? Well, I would say it is possible to do that, but I would rather just recommend finding another way to talk to them rather than invade their space in that way. So it is possible to communicate with your other existences, yes.
Well, folks, if you enjoyed the show, don't forget to give us a like, thumbs up. I see that Facebook has now put a thumbs up in instead of a like. And we'll probably all see you next week. And I think I'm going to try to talk Dr. Leslie into doing a couple of more channelings for us.
Okay.
Oh, that was easy.
Sure.
So we'll see you all next week, folks. Take care.
Right. Bye.
Bye-bye.